Welcome to the Forest of Thought with me, Ingrid Rieser. In this podcast, we explore the web of ideas that our lives are entangled in. If you want to know more about the idea behind the podcast, I suggest listening to the first couple of minutes of the previous episode. As I mentioned last time, this first season is called Landmarks, where we dive deeper into those foundational ideas that we live by, the ones we use to orient ourselves in the landscape of life. I am continuing to let the corona crisis guide our meanderings in the forest of thought. And today we find ourselves in a region of the woods that most of us usually only observe at a safe distance, with worry in our hearts. There's not much light, and it's hard to see what's actually growing here in the damp, dark earth. It's a bit frightening, frankly. Say the word apocalypse, and you summon up images of destruction, collapse, fire, flood, and war, or fleeting scenes from various end-of-the-world Hollywood films. But what does the word really mean? What are the hidden layers of meaning beneath the doom and gloom exterior? That's what we're here to explore. As our guide today, we have ecologist and activist Pella Thiel.
When we base our hope on an assessment of probability, we have to do with a superficial hope. That hope does not take us to the depths we need to explore, as we will protect it by avoiding to look at the unraveling of the living world. To protect our fragile hope, we don't take in the totality of our circumstances. We don't let the grief in. Probably we need to lose this hope. Can we support each other in that loss to find new hope somewhere else?
Pella has co-founded the Swedish Transition Network that works towards creating resilient communities, and also End Ecocide Sweden, an organization working to make ecocide an international crime. She's part of the NGO Lodin, where she hosts courses in ecopsychology. I went to visit Pella at her family's farm on the island of Ingarö, outside of Stockholm. She took me to a clearing in the forest, a stone's throw from her house. There was a partly overcast sky overhead, a bit of breeze in the trees, a distant hum of traffic on the road, and the occasional bumblebee to keep us company. So I've been thinking a lot about how to start the conversation, and it's a tricky one, because like I told you before, I had this feeling, this idea that got into my head that I wanted to talk to you about the apocalypse and about collapse. And I guess we're gonna have to figure out through the conversation why it was that I wanted to talk to you about that.
It's so great that you want to do that, because it's kind of a forbidden subject to speak about.
Yeah. It is a topic that we sometimes shy away from, but I have a feeling that because you have worked a lot with thinking about how we might transition to a more resilient society, then you've also kind of had to think about what collapse might mean, and I'd be really interested to hear you talk a little bit about what your thinking or process of thinking of that has been throughout the last several years, actually.
Wow, yeah. I think, like many, I had this feeling of something being fundamentally wrong since a very long time, and mostly because of how we treat animals and how we treat nature. And then the climate change issue came around about 15 years ago, and I went into that and basically found the collapse there. And I think it's Paul Shefurka, he's a writer and thinker, and he has been describing the ladder of awareness, saying that first you have an awareness of a problem, like climate change, for example, and then you see that, there are other problems also that we have to take into account, like for example inequality. And then maybe you go further and you see that there are actually a lot of problems and they are interlinked, and you find that we are in a predicament, an unpleasant situation that you cannot, there aren't problems to be solved, but it's a state of being that has to shift. And that for me came, I think, when I met with the transition movement.
Could you say a little bit about what the transition movement is?
The transition movement is a global grassroots movement who is striving to work for healthy, resilient local communities with well-being for people and nature, and not based on fossil fuels. And it's been around for about 15 years. It came from England, and I was part of founding the Transition Sweden, Transition Network in Sweden. And so we are working locally with global systemic issues, and we are also working with the relationship between outer transition and inner transition. So the inner transition always being part of dealing with the predicament that we are in.
I also heard that there's been a lot of interest in the transition network now since the latest developments in the corona crisis. And what do you think that is, or how you're interpreting that?
Yeah. So I think many transitioners have been working for a long time, years, with the collapse as a reality. And that means that we're not surprised when this crisis comes about, because it was inevitable. We've been building for a situation like the coronavirus, and all the global risk assessment has had a pandemic as one of them. So it's not unexpected in any way. So when we see structures falling apart and systems, like for example the food system, falling apart, then we know what to do. So if we are talking about the apocalypse, which is a wonderful word, it's funny to say, apocalypse.
Yeah, it is.
And it means, literally it means revealing or unveiling. And this crisis has been unveiling systemic issues that many people haven't seen before. But now they see things like how extremely vulnerable our systems are, our economic system and our food system, and basic things that we've been taking for granted before, but that we see that actually it might not hold. And that means that things like food resilience that we have been working on for many years suddenly is an issue. You can talk about that in the debate in society, which is very relieving for us. That we don't have to carry this on our own. We can talk about it with people, and we can say, what are we going to do?
It's really interesting what you said about how the apocalypse does. In its original meaning, unveiling, uncovering, and like you said, all of these social structures that are not as resilient or as robust or as permanent as we thought. Suddenly all of these things are changing. But also interesting to think about what is being revealed about us as people as well, like what is being revealed about our insides, so to speak. Do you think are you seeing some of that too?
Yeah, well, what I've been reflecting on lately a lot is the fear of death. So, I mean, it's not like... So, people are dying now from a disease that's contagious and deadly. We know what it is, and we know more or less how to prevent it. And that's really interesting that the unveiling comes in the form of fear of death. So we are closing down society. I mean, doing all the things that we who are engaged in climate change have been calling for decades. I mean, stop producing things in this way, stop transporting things in this way. And suddenly in comes a disease, and everything that has been necessary for decades is suddenly being done very quickly. And that's so interesting, because I think the fear of death is something that's kind of symptomatic for our culture. And that it has to do with it has to do with our separation from the world. So that means that if you're separated from the world, when you die, it's over.
Right.
And that is so... That's such an unhealthy relationship to the world, because death is just the other side of life. So if you don't have death, you cannot have life. And if you are afraid of death, then that means that you're actually afraid of life. And that you are acting in a way that's killing life, which is what we do collectively. And it's also... I think it has to do with how we kind of obsessively try to take the world apart to understand how it works, to in a way have control over it.
Yeah.
Because that's what you... I mean, if you're scared of death, you need to control the world around you. And also, I mean, all the responses like, oh, anything could happen to life on Earth, you know, there could be an asteroid taking out everything, or there could be catastrophic climate change, or there could be a lot of things. We have to be a multiplanetary species.
Right.
And that's what we are kind of investing in. Yeah. I mean, the interest in projects like Elon Musk's space trips is vastly larger than the interest in the transition movement, for example.
Right.
So when we are going up in space, that's something that our culture is kind of receptive to. And also the issue of, you know, that actually we don't want to die. So we want to live forever, or at least a very, very long time. And this is also something that a lot of people are thinking about and hoping for, and actually also, you know, investing in and believing in. That you could be 1,000 years old, and that's a good thing. I mean, who wouldn't want to be that? Yeah, I don't know. Is that really important? The goal? Is it the goal? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I was reading a piece by Charles Eisenstein, which maybe you have read it as well, which was, he was saying, why is it that we're mobilizing a huge amount to save lives in relation to this pandemic, when we're not mobilizing at all on that scale to save lives in relation to a lot of other problems like hunger or other diseases that have cures or etc. And he I think that his idea was that it's because we think that we have an idea that we can control, quote unquote, this disease and this contagion.
Yeah.
And so then we jump on it. The other sources of death are, they seem to us, not possible to control in the same way, because they require us to actually change our systems and change the way that maybe we are, change our economic systems, for example. And so,
they are not solvable by applying more control.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do. So then we don't do it.
Yeah. And I think I was thinking about this in relation to, I've seen a picture of you on Facebook where you're holding this flag where it says embrace the uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like it's sort of related to this thing that we have a hard time doing that. We have a hard time bearing uncertainty. And I wanted to ask you about why you're holding the flag that says embrace the uncertainty.
Yeah. I think, we are in such an interesting point in history now, when it's really, what's being revealed to us is our worldview, I think. And a search for other ways of perceiving the world. And so the kind of the control and domination model is at its peak, possibly. And what we are seeing in response to the corona is also actually a vastly more control. The response is very much based on control, on controlling people in a way that we have never ever seen in the Western society, I suppose. And to me, the response that I would like to see, and that also Charles Eisenstein, I believe, wants to see, is that we are actually now waking up to a world that's alive, which means uncontrollable. It's a living world. It's not possible to control. And what does that mean? And so if you want to if you have an idea of development that's based on transcending the living world and controlling it, more and more control and comfort and things that we want to have, then the idea of the world being uncontrollable is frightening. And because then you would have to live with uncertainty. You would have to embrace uncertainty, because you can never ever be certain. And that's very scary, I think. And how do you so I think Charles, he's calling it, he used to call climate change an initiation for us. And maybe the initiation for us is to understand that the world is uncertain and death is part of life.
Yeah. And I think that what's interesting, the corona crisis definitely brings up for me several kind of conflicting feelings in relation to that. So on the one hand, I get this feeling like, oh, this is a crisis in which we have to act, and we have to roll up our sleeves and get to work with changing things, and we need to be taking this opportunity and so on. And I think it's very easy to slip into this kind of... One thing is the instrumentalization of a moment, kind of like, what can we use this moment for?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is having this, okay, how can I fix this approach? Which is very easy to slip into when you're presented with a terrible predicament or problem that we already talked about. And then at the same time, I have, as that is going on, I have this feeling that we need to be sitting with this. We need to be just reflecting and taking in what is being exposed, what is being revealed. And actually we become we're so vulnerable and so kind of naked in our mortality, just like you said. So I guess that the question is, how do you honor the sort of uncertainty and not try to control situations? But you should, of course, still act, right? Or we, of course, still need to be making choices. We still need to be responding somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's impossible not to. And so I guess I'm wondering what you think about that kind of tension of responding to a situation without seeking to control the situation.
Yeah. There were a lot of thoughts there. I read something from the philosopher Ann Heberlein, and she said that the opposite of evil is not good, but it's reflection. And now it's like Mother Earth, she she has sent us, I mean, literally back to our room, saying, you did something wrong, you have to sit here and reflect on it. And how do you know what to do? I mean, it's like we haven't even understood collectively what we have done. We haven't understood the scale of destruction that we have inflicted on the world. I mean, we are ripping life apart, and we are trying to... I mean, some people see that, but our system, our structures, our economy, our agriculture, our forestry don't see that, but they are still, we are still destroying life. So until that's unveiled, until we can understand that's the case, how can we... I mean, what good does it do to act? Because basically the most of the things I see which could be called action is still destructive. So we haven't even began trying to act in a way that would be in any way, beautiful or honorable or graceful. And I think that has to do with the potential or the ability to take in uncertainty, to actually say, oh, I didn't know this was the case. I didn't know the world looked like this. What am I gonna do? And that takes a lot of courage to be in that position, but it's not until you do that you know. I mean, how we don't even know what's forward anymore, because what was forward was destructive. Yeah, and that thing with so we are really brought up with the idea that before you do something, you have to know what you do, why you do it, and what you want it to lead to. You have to have a plan, and that you can measure and say, oh, we succeeded, or we didn't succeed, we have to change this. And that way of operating is just not working anymore. Because we don't know, because of uncertainty.
Well, what do you let? I mean, I think. Yeah, because I sometimes think about it as this coming to terms with the fact that I can't fix this situation in the way that I thought. I can only sort of feel into it in a new way, and I don't know what that way is yet. But at the same time we also, at the same time we also need to let ourselves be guided in the choices that we make. By perhaps a way of knowing that is more deeply rooted, perhaps. But I think that for you, who has been, you've been doing the listening and the looking in a brave way for a long time. When you think about how you respond to, for example, this situation that we find ourselves in now, how are you doing that?
There were some veils that was taken away from me. That maybe it would have been more comfortable to keep. Yeah.
Interesting.
And because if you're going to do that, to sit with the world and to try to understand what's happening. I mean, I think that's actually a responsibility we have. Just try to be present with what's happening. But to do that when what's happening is so painful, is painful. I mean, it hurts. And to let it hurt you is probably necessary. I mean, to let it into you. And the transition movement is very inspired by an eco-philosopher, Joanna Macy, who is working with something called the work that reconnects. And she has said that you shouldn't be afraid of breaking your heart, because the heart that's broken can contain the whole universe. And that's maybe what it takes. I mean, let your heart be broken, and that's not very pleasant. and then you have to deal with your fear of death, because when the heart breaks, maybe that's also possibly deadly. And I think that when we want to be with the world, we have to meet with our fear of death, because there is death in the world, and because I am going to die. And we are so conditioned with avoiding death. I mean, in every aspect, in every level. I have never ever seen a dead person. How strange isn't that?
I don't think I have either, actually.
No. That's crazy. The interesting thing, the really interesting thing, is that we can never get into the relationship with the world that I believe we have to be in, if we stop if we let ourselves be guided by the fear of death. Because what's on the other side of that is the encounter with the living world, with the beauty. It's so beautiful when we allow ourselves to meet with it and to be, just taken away by the ecstasy of being alive in a living world that's just constantly renewing itself. So if we stop by the fear of death, we can never be, in a way, we cannot be healed. We cannot be part of life.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what's happening now. I hear it from so many that they are now taking time to be in nature, to be present with what's happening now in the springtime, that they have never followed the shift of the seasons like they are doing now. They are never walking in the forest so much, and maybe actually that's kind of a that's such an unexpected side effect that people are, physically encountering nature in a new way.
Yeah.
And being also in a sensory relationship with other living beings, because you cannot be close to other people. So suddenly, I've seen various organizations saying that, if you want to experience touch, go out and hug a tree.
Yeah.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that the situation in Sweden is, of course, quite particular in that sense, since in so many countries people are the thing that they're in most intimate touch with is their screens, of course. So it's a particular kind of situation. Another thing that I have reflected on regarding apocalypse as I was preparing for this is that now we've kind of come to see it as this synonymous with the end of the world. Everything is, sort of collapsing. Although, as we discussed it, actually, the word actually means an unveiling and uncovering, and that is actually coming up quite a lot, I think, in people's discussions, at least in certain circles. But also that, in the original Christian understanding, and probably in other ideas as well, there's this idea of the world is coming to an end, but that's also not the end of the world, actually. Like what our friend Dougald Hein usually says, the end of the world is, we know it is not the end of the world. Full stop. And so ends necessarily imply beginnings. And I thought that was kind of closely related to what you were saying about how we need death for there to be life. And the same way that in order for things to begin, there also needs to be an end. Although, of course, it's in practice, it's incredibly messy, and you probably don't know where things are ending or beginning. But I think that, would you want to speak to that a little bit? And also in terms of, for people who are, now that we all are together in this sort of chaotic, confusing, painful, strange moment.
Yeah.
What do we take with us from that knowledge of the ends being interwoven with the beginning somehow?
Maybe we are incredibly narcissistic, I think, the Western civilization, and in the same way as we as people think that when we die, that's the end.
Yeah.
When we see that the Western civilization might collapse, we think that's the end.
Yeah.
But that's really lame. Of course, something else will come. And I think, I mean, I'm very, very frustrated because I see that there are so many great alternatives that people have been creating for a long time. Alternatives that are beautiful, that respects the more than human beings, and that also creates a beautiful and more healthy society for all. And they are not visible. And they are not seen as realistic alternatives. Yeah. So hopefully that's what will happen when what we were used to is not working anymore. Then we are going to look for alternatives. But as you said, it's messy. I mean, the alternatives will be maybe also not so healthy, like the surveillance capitalism, for example, that's now really growing.
It's a very important distinction that you just said, that it could also get much worse.
Yeah.
And so it depends on the choices that we make.
Exactly.
And how we respond to this time there's nothing inevitable or fatalistic about the progression of things at all.
Exactly. So you cannot just lean back and say, oh, it will all collapse and then it will get better, because it will not automatically. I mean, we will have to choose what we are going to build when the old structures fall apart. On the edge of chaos is always when systems get very creative. And I think we are on the edge of chaos, and I think that's also an opportunity for transition, of course.
Yeah.
That maybe couldn't be. It could. I mean, that transition couldn't happen until things became very chaotic, and as we said before, collapse is it's not really welcome to speak about collapse, because no one wants collapse, but actually when we are not having collapse in the industrial growth system, what we are seeing is collapsing ecosystems. So basically we have had the collapse for decades now. It's just that it's not visible to us. So the thing is, okay, what do we want collapsing? I think the collapse of the living world is, I mean, that's what we would least want to collapse. And then we have to do something very different than what we're doing now.
I was wondering, actually, I mean, I think that on that note, if you wanted to read something about hope that I actually forgot to tell you about this, so just spring it on you. Because I heard you speak at
I'm embracing uncertainty.
Good. I know you're so good at it. That's why this was a test to see if you were the real deal. I heard you speak at a conference, and you were speaking really beautifully about hope. And I was wondering if it's all right with you, maybe you just want to read part of that, and then we can talk about it.
Yeah. When we base our hope on an assessment of probability, we have to do with a superficial hope. Yet, a lot of the hope the sustainability discourse desperately cling to is that kind of hope entertained by the analytical mind. That's why we have to convince each other that solar energy is being installed at record levels, or that the consumption of plastic bags is going down, or that we do have a great and important climate agreement. That hope does not take us to the depths we need to explore, as we will protect it by avoiding to look at the unraveling of the living world. To protect our fragile hope, we don't take in the totality of our circumstances. We don't let the grief in. probably we need to lose this hope. Can we support each other in that loss to find new hope somewhere else? There is another hope. A hope eco-philosopher Joanna Macy has called an active hope. It's the kind of hope that's based not on likelihood, but of doing something uniquely human, to make a choice. The kind of choice you would do if your child was very, very sick, with small chances of survival. You wouldn't base your choice to sit with your child on the probability that she would survive or not. You would sit there because there's nothing else you could do, because of love.
Thank you. So I heard you give this talk at a conference a couple of years ago, and well, I was wondering if you wanted to say a bit more about that, about hope, given the context that we're in now.
Yeah. So, as you were talking about, how do you act in an uncertain world when you cannot foresee the results of your actions, and you then I think you have to, or what Joanna Macy is also saying is that hope is not something you have, it's something you do. It's like a longing. So when you act, you have to make a choice on what you act for, what you want to see growing, where you want to focus, what you want to create, and then go ahead and create it, even if you cannot know if you will succeed, and you cannot know what your actions will lead to. I mean, maybe they will seem very small, or they will seem futile and not lead to very much at all. But the thing is that you can't know that. There's also the possibility that they could lead to something huge. I mean, like we now have the example of Greta. She was a lone person sitting down with a sign at the parliament.
Yeah.
She couldn't know what that would lead to. And that's also the effect of living in a world of uncertainty, that actually, when the time is ready, small actions can have totally transformative effects, and there's no way of knowing. So you can only act for what you want to see happening.
And maybe that's a good place to connect to something else that you've talked about previously, which is this idea of desire, and how let's see what I had about that. Because I mean, often when we say the word desire, we think about, desire for a new car, or high-paying job, or clothes, that kind of desire. But actually, there's an unknown depth to desire, right? Which is our true desires, or our true longings.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how it's. Yeah, I was thinking about if you want to if you want to control people, or not that somebody is willfully trying to control people exactly, but still, we still live in a system that is kind of, like we already talked about, is based on control, because control is useful and safe, and it leads to certain things that we like. So if we're going to control the world, is it best to direct people's desires towards things like new material objects, consumption, etc., or is it best to suppress desires, which I think we don't talk about so much, actually.
Right.
Because I think we talk a lot about how we're being fooled into wanting all these things we don't actually need by, advertising industry and so on. But actually, I think that a lot of what is going on is that our real desires are being suppressed somehow. So either because there's no space for them, or because they're not, operationalizable. They're not realistic, quote unquote. So
I mean,
that's just
maybe they're not profitable.
And they're not profitable. That too. So yeah, I was wondering what your...
I think definitely that our desires are being corrupted and betrayed all the time by a system that's based on profit, actually, as a goal, which means that we can only feed desires that someone will gain from, and we are being lured into that state of being, which is just so totally depressing. I mean, how can we allow that?
Right.
But I think it's interesting with desire. Well, so there are two things there. One is that I think that we have to, to create what then Charles Eisenstein calls the more beautiful world. We have to desire that world. I mean, we have to long for that world to even be able to move in that direction. And that's where the sustainability discourse is totally failing.
Yeah.
Because it's asking us to do less.
Yeah.
To restrain ourselves, to take up very little space, to do very little damage.
Yeah.
But that's not creative. That's not something that you would long for. I mean, it's kind of a sad.
It's an anti-longing.
Yeah. So to have a direction, to move somewhere, you have to have some pulling force there, and that's what desire is. And how do we get that? Well, that's where the ecstatic meeting with the world comes in, I think. And it's very interesting that desire is a bodily sensation.
Yeah.
It's something that you experience with your senses, and that's also kind of antithetical to Western ideas, because I mean, as I interpret it, the body is also part of the impermanent realm. So the body will die and decay, and that's something that we don't want to think about. So we are kind of suppressing and disregarding ourselves as bodies, as bodily beings. We're saying we have a body, but actually what we are celebrating and focusing on is the mind, because the mind is beyond and in the eternal sphere of thoughts. So we be constructing worlds with our minds and systems and ideas, and we put all our energy into those ideas, and that takes us into space, I mean, physically, or into downloading our minds in a computer and saying that we have eternal lives, and things like that. So I believe that we have to make friends with our bodies and actually work with, again, I mean, we spoke about reflection, but also resensing the world. I mean, to actually take time to focus on how does this feel? How does it feel inside of me? And how does the world feel? How does it look? How does it smell? I guess that the reflection we are speaking about could be called spirituality, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting with the maybe the fear or the worry around spirituality. At least in Sweden, it's quite controversial to speak about spirituality. But to me, it's just my relationship with the world. And actually, that word too, spirituality, it comes from respire.
Right, breathing.
Breathing, which is my most immediate physical connection with the world.
Mm.
So how can that be controversial? I don't know. I think it's lame.
Well, I think it's definitely an uncontrollable and maybe unknowable thing, and then that's maybe also why we don't know how to talk about it anymore.
Right.
And that the words for talking about it have been kind of grown stale or lost their meaning. And so then we try to think of new words, but that's not easy. And words are anyway always inadequate, I guess, for that kind of experience.
Yeah. Some words are maybe better than other words. Maybe we should all try to become poets.
Yes. I agree. So in the course of our conversation, the sky has cleared. The sun is out. There's kind of dappled sunlight here in the glade.
And blueberry flowers.
Blueberry flowers. There's a bumblebee bumbling around. And yeah, thanks for hosting us, both to you and to the glade.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening. I am really hoping to pick up on several of the threads from this discussion as we move forward. What did you think of the episode? What thoughts came up for you? Please stay in touch and share your comments via our Facebook page, Instagram, or our website, forestofthought.com. And please share this podcast with people you think might appreciate these conversations. Our amazing theme music is by Christian Sten. You'll find him at stoneproduction.no. Thanks again for listening, and speak to you next time.